7 dangerous places Carl Jung says you must avoid to stay mentally strong. As Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. In today's fast-paced world, staying mentally strong isn't just about discipline, it's about awareness. There are certain environments, patterns, and people that quietly drain your energy and distort your sense of self. In this video from Spiritual Wisdom, we'll explore 7 dangerous places, not just physical, but emotional and psychological, that Jung warns us to avoid if we want to protect our peace and evolve spiritually. Have you ever felt your energy shift around certain people or places? Drop a comment and share your experience below. Let's dive into this journey of deeper awareness and personal growth together. 1. The echo chamber. An echo chamber is not just a room, it's a mindset. It's any space, digital or physical, where the only voices you hear are ones that agree with yours. Social media feeds, group chats, even family dinners can become echo chambers when no one questions, disagrees, or offers a different view. In such spaces, challenge disappears, and with it, so does growth. Carl Jung warned of the danger of collective thinking, where the individual is drowned by the chorus of the crowd. When everyone thinks the same, we stop thinking altogether. What we call harmony is sometimes just conformity in disguise. The comfort of agreement is seductive. It feels like safety. You don't have to defend your views, explain your feelings, or confront your blind spots. But this kind of safety comes at a steep cost: your evolution. When you are never stretched, your mind becomes rigid. When you are never challenged, your soul becomes stagnant. Echo chambers may look peaceful on the surface, but underneath, they are prisons built from fear. Fear of being wrong, fear of rejection, fear of change. In today's world, it's easy to live in these bubbles. Algorithms feed us more of what we already believe. Friend groups form around shared ideologies. Families pressure us to stay within inherited thinking. But over time, something within you begins to fade. You lose your curiosity, your thoughts grow stale, your ability to reflect weakens. Jung believed that true inner strength comes from facing discomfort, not avoiding it. That's why echo chambers are so dangerous. They keep you spiritually asleep while convincing you that you're awake. The deeper danger is this: when you spend too long in a space where you are always right, you forget how to grow. Growth demands friction. It comes from hearing something that shakes you, from encountering an idea that unsettles you, from standing in a room where you're no longer the smartest or the safest. That's when you begin to reflect, to question, to transform. But echo chambers don't allow that. They train you to protect your identity, not evolve it. So what can you do? Seek out people who disagree with you, but respect you. Read books that argue against your beliefs. Expose yourself to unfamiliar perspectives. Let yourself be wrong, and let that humility soften you. Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But you can't even begin that process if you've never stepped outside your reflection. Echo chambers create illusions of truth, of unity, of strength. But real strength comes from within, not from external agreement. Mental resilience is forged through tension, not repetition. Spiritual wisdom arises when we leave the crowd, not when we echo it. The more we allow challenge into our inner world, the more our spirit awakens. Echo chambers may protect the ego, but they starve the soul. And you were not born to echo, You were born to evolve. Have you ever stepped outside your echo chamber and challenged your own beliefs? If so, share what you discovered in the comments below. Your insight could inspire someone else's awakening. If not, comment, "I'm ready to grow." And let's begin this journey of independent thought and spiritual expansion together. 2. The comparison arena. The comparison arena is one of the most dangerous places for your soul because it doesn't look like a threat. It looks like motivation. It disguises itself as ambition, but slowly drains your self-worth. You don't even realize you've stepped into it. One scroll on social media, one glance at someone else's life, and suddenly your own life feels too small, too slow, too behind. This invisible space becomes a mental trap where your value is constantly measured against someone else's success, beauty, relationship, or wealth. And in this illusion of competition, your inner peace starts to vanish. Carl Jung's concept of individuation, the sacred process of becoming your true, whole self, is completely shattered in this arena. Because the moment you begin comparing, you are no longer becoming you. You are performing for a life that was never yours to live. Instead of listening to your inner wisdom, you begin chasing timelines that don't belong to you. You feel like a failure, not because you failed, but because you've been convinced someone else's definition of success is the only valid one. Social media fuels this illusion endlessly. It's not just the photos, it's the subtle message behind them. This is how life should look. You begin to feel behind in your healing, your career, your relationship status. But what you're seeing isn't reality. It's a carefully curated highlight reel. And yet, you compare it to your full, raw, unedited life. In doing so, you create a quiet war within yourself. You start wanting things not because they bring you joy, but because they bring approval. And that is the moment you start living a borrowed life. Spiritual wisdom teaches that your path is sacred and unique. There is no race, no competition. When you're trapped in comparison, you lose touch with your authentic desires. You forget what lights you up. Your choices become reactions, not reflections. The noise of the world drowns out the voice of your soul. You start mimicking success instead of defining it for yourself. The result? A life that looks good on the outside, but feels empty on the inside. Comparison also robs your joy, even in moments of achievement. You graduate, get a new job, reach a milestone, but instead of celebrating, you look to the side and ask, did they do it better? That question doesn't come from the truth. It comes from wounding. Jung believed that when we abandon our inner compass for outer approval, we become fragmented, divided between who we are and who we think we should be. The only way back is to stop performing and start listening. Step by step, reclaim your rhythm. Let go of the timelines, the pressure, the borrowed definitions. Return to what feels real and true. Measure your growth by who you were yesterday, not by who someone else is today. You are not behind. You are on your own divine schedule. You are not lacking. You are learning. You are not late. You are aligning. And when you finally leave the comparison arena, you don't just find peace, you find yourself again. If you're ready to step out of the comparison arena and reclaim your authentic path, comment below, "I choose my own journey." And if this message spoke to you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more wisdom on living true to yourself. 3. The masked circle. There are places where your spirit doesn't scream, but slowly fades. These are the environments where you're required to perform, where survival depends on suppressing your truth and presenting a carefully constructed version of yourself. You smile when you want to scream. You agree when your heart aches with disagreement. You nod, comply, adapt all, because deep down, you fear that showing your real self might cost you the connection you crave. In such spaces, the mask becomes your ticket to safety. But safety, in this form, is soul-crushing. Carl Jung called this mask the persona, a necessary interface with the world, yet dangerously deceptive when mistaken for your identity. The more you wear the mask, the more you become it. You begin to forget the feel of your own raw voice. You abandon your emotional instincts just to maintain approval. And slowly, without realizing it, the line between who you are and who you pretend to be begins to blur. You feel the exhaustion, not just in your body, but in your soul, an invisible fatigue that no sleep can cure. You might find yourself in a job where emotional detachment is rewarded, or in a family where authenticity is perceived as rebellion, or among friends who only celebrate the version of you that keeps things light and unchallenging. These environments are not necessarily abusive in the traditional sense, but they are profoundly unwell for the soul. Because spiritual sickness isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the silence of your truth, unspoken for too long. In these masked circles, you begin to experience what Jung warned us about: isolation amidst people, emptiness in places of supposed belonging. Because it's not your real self being seen, it's your edited self being tolerated. And while this may offer short-term peace, it robs you of long-term freedom. You were not meant to shrink to fit inside other people's comfort zones. You were not meant to suffocate behind a smile. And you were certainly not meant to abandon yourself in the name of keeping the peace. Over time, this suppression becomes a form of self-betrayal. The disconnection is not just emotional, it is energetic. Your aura dims, your intuition dulls, your creativity dries up. And the worst part? You normalize it. You convince yourself that this is just how adulthood feels, that masks are part of maturity. But deep down, a quiet rebellion stirs. A part of you begins to ache, not for escape, but for truth, for the sacred right to be whole again. Spiritual awakening often begins here, not with fireworks, but with discomfort. A whisper that says, "This isn't me." A sacred ache that reminds you, you are not here to perform. You are here to become. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be real. And the moment you honor that discomfort, the mask begins to crack. Not because you're broken, but because your truth is finally rising to the surface. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever felt like you had to wear a mask just to belong? Let's talk about it. Your story might help someone else feel seen. 4. The silent home. Some homes don't break you with violence, they break you with silence. In these places, love is not spoken, only assumed. Emotions are not welcomed, only buried. You grow up hearing instructions, not encouragement. Silence replaces comfort, and emotional connection becomes foreign. Carl Jung believed that where there is no emotional expression, there can be no true strength. A home like this doesn't teach you how to feel. It teaches you how to hide. This kind of household may look perfect from the outside. The bills are paid, the chores are done, and the children are well fed. But inside, there's a cold distance that words never cross. No one talks about feelings. No one asks if you're okay. And if you do speak up, You're told to toughen up, to be quiet, to stop being dramatic. Slowly, you begin to internalize the silence as normal. You begin to think your emotions are a burden, and so you bury them. But what's buried doesn't die. It transforms into anxiety, detachment, and emotional confusion. Jung called this repression, and he warned that it leads to fragmentation of the self. When you're not allowed to feel, you begin to split. One version of you smiles and performs, while the other hides in silence, longing to be understood. The child raised in a silent home becomes the adult who doesn't know how to receive love, who pushes people away, who distrusts softness, not because they are cold, but because they were taught that love has no voice, no warmth, no presence, only duty. Think about how this shows up in real life. You meet someone who is successful, composed, even kind but emotionally unavailable. They struggle to talk about their feelings. They freeze when conflict arises. They ghost people not out of cruelty, but out of fear. That's the result of being raised in emotional silence. No one ever taught them how to feel safe in connection. No one ever said, "Your emotions matter here." But silence, when endured too long, becomes a form of emotional starvation. And starving the psyche is no different from starving the body. It weakens you, even if you don't see it right away. Jung believed that emotional safety is the soil in which the soul grows. Without it, the inner child withers. You become guarded, overly independent, and ashamed of needing care. But needing care is not a flaw. It is part of being human. Breaking free from the silent home means breaking the rules it imposed. That love must be earned, that pain must be hidden, that emotions are weakness. You do this by creating spaces where your truth is safe, where you are allowed to cry, to speak, to feel. You begin to reparent yourself. You surround yourself with people who value emotional honesty. You speak words that once felt dangerous. I need help. I'm hurting. I want to be understood. And with every word, you reclaim the voice that silence tried to take from you. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Silence is often unconscious, a pattern passed down for generations. But you have the power to break it. You are not here to carry emotional invisibility any longer. You are here to feel, to express, to become whole. Are you ready to break the silence and reclaim your emotional truth? If so, comment below. I choose to express, to begin your journey toward healing and inner freedom. 5. The chaotic space. The chaotic space is a mental and emotional battlefield disguised as everyday life. It's not always loud in the traditional sense, but it's filled with a relentless hum, notifications buzzing, deadlines approaching, people demanding, screens glowing, and your thoughts spinning faster than you can keep up. In this overstimulated environment, your mind becomes fragmented, scattered across tasks, tabs, and to-do lists. You begin to forget what peace even feels like. Stillness becomes uncomfortable. Silence becomes threatening. So you keep moving, not because you're growing, but because slowing down feels unsafe. In this state, you don't just lose time, you lose yourself. You become a responder to life, not a creator of it. Jung warned us that true meaning doesn't come from speed, but from depth. Yet in this chaotic space, there is no depth, only motion. You're always catching up, never arriving. And the voice of your soul, the one that speaks in whispers, not shouts, gets drowned out by the constant noise around you. You scroll to escape your thoughts, multitask to feel productive, and avoid solitude like it's a threat. But all of it is a distraction from the truth inside you that's begging to be heard. Spiritual wisdom reminds us the soul doesn't compete for your attention. It waits for your stillness. But when the world has conditioned you to equate rest with laziness and busyness with worth, sitting still becomes an act of rebellion. You avoid quiet because quiet reveals. And what it reveals may make you question everything you've been distracting yourself from: your purpose, your pain, your truth. That's why the chaotic space is dangerous, not because of what it contains, but because of what it hides. Living in constant motion leaves no room for reflection, and without reflection, there is no transformation. You become like a tree, with shallow roots easily shaken, disconnected from the nourishing soil of your own inner wisdom. And over time, your spirit begins to dim, not from a lack of effort, but from a lack of alignment. You're doing everything, yet feeling nothing, surrounded by noise, yet lonely within. To reclaim your strength, you must reclaim your stillness, not by escaping the world, but by choosing to pause in the middle of it. Create moments of sacred silence. Protect your peace like it's your most precious resource, because it is. In that quiet space, you'll find clarity. In that stillness, your soul will rise again, not scattered, not afraid, but whole. If you're ready to reclaim your inner stillness in a world of chaos, don't forget to subscribe for more spiritual wisdom that helps you slow down, go deep, and hear your soul again. 6. The abandoned self. Self-abandonment is one of the most silent yet spiritually damaging patterns we carry. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It slips in quietly through daily compromises, those moments when you ignore your instincts, override your emotions, or nod in agreement just to keep the peace. Over time, you begin to drift away from who you truly are, living a life shaped more by others' expectations than your own essence. You wear masks so well that even you forget what your face once looked like underneath. Carl Jung warned that the parts of the psyche we ignore or reject don't disappear, they manifest. What you suppress returns, often disguised as anxiety, illness, emotional numbness, or sudden despair. These symptoms are not random. They are your soul's way of sounding the alarm, of saying, you've left yourself behind. Jung called this the emergence of the shadow, the collection of exiled aspects of your personality that you deemed unacceptable, too sensitive, too bold, too real. And until these parts are seen and integrated, they will continue to sabotage your sense of peace from the inside out. This is why people who seem fine often feel secretly hollow. They've traded authenticity for approval. But make no mistake, there is nothing mature or noble about losing yourself to be liked. Real growth begins the moment you stop betraying yourself in the name of being loved. When you choose your truth over temporary comfort, you initiate a deep spiritual awakening that can't be undone. The moment you return to yourself, the healing begins not from outside validation, but from inner reunion. People-pleasing might feel like kindness on the surface, but spiritually, it's self-erasure. Every time you silence your truth, you train your nervous system to fear your own voice. And that fear seeps into everything. Your relationships, your creativity, your sense of purpose. Slowly, you stop making decisions from your intuition and begin reacting from survival. You show up where you're needed, not where you're nourished. You become reliable to everyone but yourself. Reclaiming your inner voice is not rebellion, It's repair. It's not about becoming selfish, but becoming whole. When you finally stop abandoning your feelings, your desires, and your instincts, you stop leaking energy into spaces that were never meant to hold you. You stop searching for home in other people because you've remembered how to return to yourself. There is no spiritual awakening without self-honesty. And honesty means asking hard questions. Whose life am I really living? Whose approval am I sacrificing myself for? Which parts of me have I silenced just to stay accepted? The answers may hurt, but within that discomfort lies liberation. To integrate your shadow is to become powerful in ways the world may not understand, but your soul will never forget. Have you been silencing your truth for too long? If you're ready to come home to yourself, comment below. I choose to reclaim my inner voice. 7. The Forbidden Room. There is a hidden space within you, not in the outside world, but buried deep in your inner landscape. Carl Jung called it the shadow of the room of repressed memories, buried emotions, and unhealed wounds. It holds everything you've tried to forget: the childhood pain, the heartbreak you never processed, the anger you weren't allowed to express. You tell yourself it's in the past, but the truth is, what you suppress doesn't vanish. It waits. It hides in your habits, your reactions, your fears. And the more you avoid this inner room, the more it quietly takes control. Jung warned that what you resist not only persists, but will grow in size. When you ignore the shadow, you hand over your power. Your past begins to influence your present in ways you can't see. You may believe you're making free choices, but many of those choices are just reactions, subtle attempts to avoid pain. You overwork to avoid feeling unworthy. You settle in relationships to avoid abandonment. You shut down emotionally to avoid vulnerability. And all the while, the shadow is pulling the strings, using your silence against you. A woman once said she didn't understand why every relationship she had ended with her feeling unseen. It wasn't until years into her adult life that she realized she had grown up invisible, constantly pleasing others, afraid to be a burden. Her inner child was still in that forbidden room, still asking to be seen. That room didn't just hold her pain, it held her pattern. It shaped her identity until she chose to walk back in and face it. To Carl Jung, healing didn't mean eliminating the shadow, but integrating it. The goal isn't to destroy the parts you don't like, it's to understand them. When you bring light into the darkness, what once felt like a monster becomes a wounded part of you that simply needs compassion. Spiritual awakening is not about bypassing your pain. It's about facing it. It's about sitting with discomfort, with honesty, and asking, what part of me have I abandoned? You cannot become whole by rejecting parts of yourself. Avoiding the shadow may feel safe, but it fractures your spirit. The room you avoid is where your strength is buried. Your creativity, your passion, your true voice, it's all there, behind that door. When you open it, not in fear, but in courage, you reclaim your wholeness. This is the journey Carl Jung calls us to. Not to run from pain, but to meet it. Not to hide from our past, but to learn from it. Because the forbidden room isn't where you lose yourself. It's where you finally find the parts of you thought were lost. If this message has stirred something deep within you, leave a comment of courage. I'm ready to face my shadow and heal what's been hidden. Your journey to wholeness begins with one bold step inward. Remember, the places we choose to dwell both physically and emotionally can shape the strength of our minds and the peace of our souls. As Carl Jung wisely taught, true mental resilience often comes from knowing not just what to seek, but what to avoid. If today's message spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. For more insights on spirituality, mental strength, and awakening your inner power, make sure to subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming videos. Stay conscious, stay strong, and until next time, take care of your energy. Carl Jung and Fated Love. How to know if that person is for you. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Have you ever met someone who feels like they were meant to cross your path? As if your souls recognized each other long before words were spoken? In today's video on spiritual wisdom, we'll explore how Jung's profound insights into the psyche, projections, and synchronicity can help you understand whether that powerful connection in your life is true love or simply unresolved wounds disguised as destiny. Before we begin, share in the comments. Have you ever experienced a connection that felt fated? Let's journey inward together to discover how to recognize the difference between illusion and soul-aligned truth. 1. Fated connections are mirrors, not coincidences. Certain people don't just enter our lives, they interrupt them. They don't feel like strangers. They feel like déjà vu wrapped in skin, like echoes of something ancient we've forgotten, but somehow still feel. Carl Jung taught that these intense, magnetic connections are not coincidences. They are the psyche's way of calling attention to what lies hidden beneath the surface. These people appear not to fulfill our fantasies, but to reflect our unfinished emotional business, to mirror our unconscious patterns, our unmet needs, our forgotten wounds. That's why fated love can feel so overwhelming. It's not just attraction, it's recognition. When a connection hits you on a soul level, it often reopens old chapters you thought were closed. You might feel pulled, triggered, even confused. But this isn't a mistake, it's a message. Jung believed that the psyche sends us signals through people, nudging us towards self-awareness. The more intense the relationship, the deeper the reflection. You're not falling for them. You're falling into yourself, into the parts you've avoided. These people awaken what was asleep in you: your vulnerability, your fear of abandonment, your need for control, or your longing to be seen fully and loved anyway. Take a moment to recall someone who entered your life and stirred everything up. Maybe they didn't stay. Maybe they couldn't. But their presence cracked something open. You started asking deeper questions. You started noticing patterns that repeated not just with them, but across your entire relationship history. That discomfort wasn't punishment, it was guidance. According to Jung, we project the hidden parts of ourselves onto others, and through those projections, we have the opportunity to become whole. But only if we pay attention. Fated connections demand self-inquiry. They force us to sit with contradictions. They don't come wrapped in clarity or stability. They arrive wrapped in emotional intensity and uncertainty. But that's the point. They wake us up. They make us choose between staying asleep in our patterns or rising into conscious love. And even when they end, they leave us altered. You begin to see yourself more clearly. You stop begging to be chosen and start choosing yourself. You stop fearing solitude and start honoring your standards. This is not romantic tragedy, it's psychological alchemy. So while the world obsesses over finding the one, Carl Jung invites us to ask a more transformative question. What is this person here to show me about myself? Fated love isn't always about lifelong partnership. Sometimes it's about soul-deep transformation. And sometimes the greatest love story you experience is the one that awakens you to your own inner truth. Are you beginning to see the deeper meaning behind your connections? If this message resonates with you, comment below, "I see the mirror," to affirm your awareness and growth. 2. Love is a pathway to inner growth, not escape. Carl Jung believed that love is not meant to complete us, but to awaken us. True, fated love doesn't rescue us from loneliness. It reveals us to ourselves. It breaks through the layers we've carefully built to protect our wounds, our longings, and our forgotten truths. When someone enters your life and stirs your emotions so deeply that you feel both joy and chaos, it's not necessarily a sign of romantic perfection. Instead, it's often a soul-level signal that something within you is ready to be healed, transformed, or finally seen. In Jungian psychology, relationships that feel destined are not accidents. These people show up to mirror our inner landscape. They reflect back the parts of ourselves we've ignored, the pain we've buried, the fears we've denied, and even the potential we've never dared to claim. This mirroring is not always comfortable. It can be disorienting, emotional, even painful. But it's also sacred, because in that reflection, we're invited to grow, not by changing the other person, but by confronting ourselves. The intensity of fated love often comes from its symbolic weight. These connections feel ancient because they are woven with archetypes that live in our collective unconscious. It's why you may feel like you've known someone forever, even if you just met. It's why you can feel an inexplicable pull toward them, even if logic tells you to walk away. Their presence triggers deep emotional memory. This isn't about past lives or fantasy. It's about your soul recognizing a pattern it needs to resolve, evolve, or integrate. Not all intense love is meant to stay. Some people are here to open the door, not walk with us through it. But that doesn't make their arrival any less meaningful. In fact, these short-lived, soul-stirring encounters often leave the deepest marks. They force us to ask hard questions, confront old stories, and rediscover parts of ourselves we lost. Through their presence, and sometimes through their departure, we're guided back to our own emotional truth. Spiritual wisdom teaches us to shift our focus from possession to purpose. Instead of clinging to a person out of fear of loss, we learn to honor what the connection awakened within us. The heartbreak, the bliss, the confusion, they're all part of the transformation. We stop seeing love as something to keep and begin seeing it as something that teaches. Each relationship becomes an initiation into deeper self-awareness. When we embrace this lens, love stops being about fantasy and becomes a sacred journey. It becomes the fire that burns away illusion. It becomes the mirror that reveals our shadow and our light. It becomes the spiritual catalyst that pushes us toward wholeness, not because someone else completes us, but because they help us remember that we were never broken to begin with. Through this kind of love, we don't just find another person, we find ourselves. And that, Jung would say, is the true purpose of fated connection. Have you ever loved someone who helped you grow, not escape? If so, share your story in the comments to inspire others. If not, comment, "I'm ready to grow through love," and begin your journey of inner awakening. 3. Synchronicity and projection. Define relationships. Jung's concept of synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence, helps us understand why certain people feel like destiny. When you meet someone and it feels like the universe has placed them in your path for a reason, it's often more than just chemistry. It's your unconscious mind trying to reveal something hidden inside you. At the same time, Jung also introduced the idea of projection, where we unconsciously cast parts of our inner world onto others. That means the intense feelings you experience may not actually be about the person in front of you, but about the unhealed or unexpressed parts of yourself they reflect. You might believe you're falling in love with someone because of who they are, but in many cases, you're drawn to what they symbolize, perhaps a missing part of your emotional life, a quality you've suppressed, or even a deep wound longing to be healed. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." These seemingly destined relationships often serve as mirrors, showing you what your soul is trying to awaken within. They are not accidents. They are invitations for spiritual awakening. When someone enters your life and shakes your core, it's easy to label it as fate. But the deeper truth is that these people often come as catalysts. They trigger transformation by touching your most vulnerable places. Some activate joy, others awaken grief, and many do both at once. They might not stay, but they ignite something permanent: awareness. That's why these connections feel unforgettable. They are soul encounters, even if they don't end in lifelong partnership. But not every intense connection is true love. Some are projections of your unmet needs. When you lack self-love, you might be pulled to those who reflect what you crave: validation, protection, intimacy. These people don't complete you. They reveal what you must complete within yourself. Real love requires presence, not illusion. It starts when you stop searching for someone to fill the void and instead begin integrating what you once disowned. That's when you shift from blind fate to conscious choice. You begin to see clearly who is actually standing before you and what within you is responding. This is the heart of spiritual wisdom, the understanding that not every love is meant to be held, but every love is meant to teach. The people who break you open often give you the pieces to rebuild yourself more whole. Some souls are not here to walk with you forever, but to awaken the part of you that forgot how to walk alone with grace. So when you ask, why did they come into my life? Consider this. Maybe they were never meant to stay. Maybe they were meant to reflect your soul back to you, so clearly and so powerfully that you had no choice but to finally see it. If this message has helped you see your relationships more clearly, subscribe to our channel and join a community that explores the deeper meaning behind love, timing, and soul connection. Here, we grow together in insight and spiritual wisdom, because the people we meet are never random, and neither are you. 4. Painful relationships can be soul activations. The ones who hurt you the most often carry the hidden keys to your transformation. Not because pain is noble or justified, but because it reveals the parts of you that still need healing. Emotional wounds in relationships are not always signs of failure. Sometimes they are sacred invitations, urgent awakenings that force you to look inward, deeper than you ever dared before. Carl Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And in love, this becomes strikingly clear. The person who shattered your sense of self may have unknowingly opened the door to your real self. Heartbreak has a way of stripping away illusion. When someone triggers your deepest insecurities, fear of abandonment, feelings of inadequacy, the desperate need to be chosen, it may feel like torment. But beneath the surface, something else is happening. You are meeting the parts of yourself you had disowned. You are confronting the buried narratives from childhood and past wounds that you once covered up with the idea that love would save you. In Carl Jung's language, this is the moment when the shadow rises to be seen. The relationship was never just about them. It was a mirror, reflecting what was hidden within you. A woman named Maya once believed she had met her twin flame. The chemistry was magnetic, the connection instant. Yet, the relationship quickly descended into chaos. He was hot and cold. She felt emotionally starved. Still, she stayed, hoping love would fix it. What she didn't realize was that the emotional starvation wasn't new. It was old. It came from a father who was emotionally unavailable, and a mother who taught her love meant sacrifice. This man, unknowingly, reactivated the pain she had spent her entire life avoiding, and in doing so, he brought it to the surface, where it could finally be seen and healed. Carl Jung believed we attract people who reflect unconscious parts of our psyche. He called it projection. We project our unmet needs, our wounds, even our potential onto others. And when they disappoint us or abandon us, we're not just grieving them, we're grieving the dream, the healing we thought they would bring, the parts of us we hoped they would love into wholeness. But in that disappointment, we find ourselves. We stop outsourcing salvation and start the journey of individuation, becoming our truest, most integrated self. Painful relationships are not detours from your path. They are the path. They burn away illusions. They crack open numbness, and they invite you to grow. You don't need to romanticize suffering, but you can recognize its role. The love that hurt you may have been the catalyst that led you back to yourself. You may not have chosen that lesson, but you can choose what you do with it now. When you look back, you'll see that the moment everything broke was also the moment everything began. The ones who leave you aching are sometimes the ones who awaken you completely. That is the paradox of growth. Through loss, we discover our wholeness. Through projection, we retrieve our soul. And through love, especially the painful kind, we step into a deeper spiritual awakening. One Carl Jung understood not as a dream, but as a lived psychological rebirth. Comment below. I welcome soul activation if you're ready to turn pain into purpose. And if this message resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom so you never miss a moment of growth and healing. 5. True love accepts, heals, and expands. Genuine love doesn't try to change you into something more convenient. It meets you exactly where you are, unfiltered, unfinished, and still growing. It doesn't flinch at your shadows or cling only to your light. Instead, it embraces the full spectrum of who you are, your doubts, your scars, your laughter, your silence. It doesn't rush to heal you or offer advice from a pedestal. It simply stays with presence, with patience, and with emotional honesty. In the realm of spiritual wisdom, this kind of love isn't just rare, it's sacred. It doesn't seek to possess or fix. It listens. It learns. It evolves beside you, not ahead of you. There is no pressure to perform or to be perfect. You're allowed to be raw, real, and in the middle of your transformation. This love holds space for contradictions, for the parts of you that want to move forward, and the parts of you still clinging to the past. It doesn't demand resolution, it offers resonance. It understands that spiritual awakening isn't about reaching a finish line, it's about deepening your presence along the way. That's why fated love never feels like force. It feels like freedom. The kind of freedom that allows you to exhale, to release the armor, and to stand bare-souled without shame. Healing within this connection happens not because someone tells you what to fix, but because they reflect back to you a truer version of yourself, one you may have forgotten. They become a mirror for your strength, your softness, and your soul. They hold you, not to shape you, but to remind you that you are already worthy of love, even in your becoming. And the more you feel safe, the more you soften. The more you soften, the more you grow. That is the quiet power of being seen and still being held. True love expands you by grounding you. It doesn't overwhelm your nervous system with highs and lows, or confuse drama with passion. It invites you into stillness, into depth. You begin to notice the divine in everyday things, how they speak, how they hold your gaze, how they listen without interrupting. You become more intuitive, more attuned to your own needs, and less willing to betray your peace for temporary affection. There's no facade to maintain, no mask to wear. You become more you because they love all of you. This love doesn't seek forever for the sake of forever. It seeks alignment. Sometimes that means a lifetime. Other times it means a chapter. But regardless of length, the impact is eternal. It shifts you. It wakes you. It teaches you how to stay present with your own soul. Not every fated connection will stay, but every one of them leaves a mark that makes you wiser, softer, and more whole. In the end, spiritual wisdom reminds us, real love doesn't demand your surrender. It teaches you how to return to yourself freely, bravely, and completely. Don't forget to subscribe for more spiritual wisdom on how true love accepts, heals, and helps you grow into your highest self without pressure, without perfection, just presence. 6. The role of anima, animus, and archetypes. In your search for love, have you ever met someone who felt like a missing piece of your soul, so magnetically familiar that it almost seemed destined? If so, you're not alone. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, believed that these powerful attractions often have less to do with fate and more to do with the unseen energies moving within us, specifically our inner masculine and feminine forces. Jung called these unconscious aspects the anima and the animus. The anima is the feminine image within the male psyche, while the animus is the masculine counterpart within the female psyche. They are not just abstract ideas, they are living energies shaped by our upbringing, personal experiences, culture, and even collective history. And without realizing it, we project them onto others, usually onto those we fall in love with. This means that when you feel a sudden, overwhelming connection to someone, what you may actually be experiencing is your anima, or animus, reaching out from within you, appearing in the outer world, embodied in another person. It feels divine, like destiny, but it's actually your own psyche seeking wholeness. This is not to say the connection isn't real, but it may be rooted more in your inner world than you initially think. Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." This transformation often begins through projection. We idealize the other person. We believe they complete us. But this illusion eventually fades. What once seemed like spiritual perfection may begin to feel like confusion or disappointment. That is the moment when the spiritual awakening begins, not when you meet them, but when you begin to see them clearly and choose to love them as they are, not as your unconscious made them appear. To love consciously is to reclaim your projections. When you integrate your anima or animus, you no longer need someone else to reflect it for you. Instead of seeking wholeness in someone else, you become whole within yourself. And from that space, you can enter a relationship rooted not in fantasy, but in reality, one where both souls see, support, and elevate each other. The archetypes within us, lover, hero, healer, mother, magician, are not just stories. They are psychological blueprints. They influence who we're drawn to and how we show up in love. If you're unaware of these archetypes, you may unconsciously play out the same emotional patterns again and again, mistaking spiritual wounds for spiritual signs. But here's the truth. Not everyone who feels magical is meant to stay. Some are mirrors, some are messengers, and some are meant to awaken parts of you that you forgot existed. The more you become aware of your inner archetypes, the more clarity you'll have about why certain people enter your life and why some are not meant to stay. So if you find yourself asking, is this person the one? Ask first, what part of myself are they reflecting? That question may lead you to a far more transformative answer. Because love, as Jung would remind us, is not about fusion, it's about individuation. It's the sacred process of becoming whole, not by merging with another, but by integrating the lost parts of yourself. This is where spiritual awakening begins, not in the arms of another, but in the quiet realization that everything you've been searching for externally has always lived within you. And once you reclaim it, love no longer becomes about finding the one. It becomes about being the one fully, freely, and consciously. And if this message resonates with you, type, "I embrace my inner wholeness" in the comments to affirm your journey of conscious love and integration. Let's awaken and evolve together. 7. Letting go is sometimes the real healing. Some people don't enter our lives to stay. They arrive to awaken, to shake the soul, to ignite something we didn't even know was asleep. Carl Jung once said, "We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life." And sometimes, that disguise takes the form of a person we fall deeply for, someone who stirs something ancient within us. The connection feels electric, spiritual, even faded. But with time, we come to see that what they brought was not forever, but a turning point. We often mistake intensity for destiny. When someone feels so deeply familiar, like we've known them across lifetimes, it's tempting to believe they were sent to complete us. But Carl Jung reminds us that the unconscious mind attracts exactly what it needs to evolve. These people come into our lives as mirrors reflecting our unhealed wounds, hidden desires, and dormant potential. They challenge our identity. They awaken parts of us that we abandoned long ago. And sometimes, once their purpose is fulfilled, they must go. A woman I once knew met a man during one of the darkest seasons of her life. He was magnetic, introspective, soulful, and wise beyond his years. It felt as though the universe had orchestrated their meeting. But soon, the highs became chaotic, and the emotional connection turned volatile. She couldn't understand why someone who felt like home could bring so much confusion. But when he left, she was forced to face herself. That pain cracked her open. She began healing the parts of her that were never about him. She stepped into her purpose. The loss became the very thing that led her to her spiritual awakening. Letting go isn't a weakness. It's alignment. It's the recognition that love doesn't always mean possession. Some people are chapters, not the whole book. We don't need to label every deep connection as forever. Some are meant to serve as bridges between who we were and who we are becoming. And trying to hold on after the lesson is learned only delays the growth. When we release someone with clarity and compassion, we make space for wholeness. The ache may linger, but the soul understands. Real healing begins when we no longer beg for their return, but thank them for showing us what we needed to see. The love was not in the staying, but in the transformation it sparked. Carl Jung's work reminds us that the soul's journey isn't about perfect endings. It's about the truth. And truth often reveals itself in loss, in silence, in the space after someone leaves. That space is sacred. It is there, in the quiet aftermath, that we return to ourselves, not broken, but reborn. If you're still here with me, comment below. I'm returning to myself. Your words matter, and they help us grow a community rooted in healing and self-awareness. 9. You must choose yourself. First, the love that is truly meant for you doesn't arrive when you're desperately seeking it in someone else's eyes. It begins the moment you stop abandoning yourself. You've spent years twisting your truth to be more palatable, shrinking to fit someone's expectations, silencing your intuition just to keep the peace. But the moment you finally say, "No more," something shifts. Choosing yourself is not an act of arrogance. It's the highest act of spiritual devotion. Because when you stop chasing validation and start honoring your own truth, you don't just change your relationships, you change your energy. And energy never lies. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." This is the very essence of spiritual awakening. When you live outwardly, always reaching, pleasing, proving you exist in a dream built on illusion, you see people not as they are, but as your unhealed parts hope they'll be. But when you turn inward, when you sit with the ache instead of numbing it, when you stop negotiating your worth just to be chosen, you wake up. You realize the real abandonment wasn't done to you. It was something you learned to do to yourself. Real love cannot grow in the soil of self-neglect. It requires self-trust. And self-trust is built in silence, in stillness, in those quiet moments when you choose to stay with yourself, even when it's hard. That is where transformation begins. And from that inner alignment, love is no longer about possession or performance. It becomes a reflection of your own peace. You stop begging to be seen and start recognizing yourself in the mirror. That's when you realize it was never about whether someone else could love you deeply. It was always about whether you could hold space for your own soul to be free. There's a kind of love that doesn't burn you out. It doesn't trigger your wounds or require you to abandon your voice. It's quiet, steady, and sacred. But you won't find that love until you're willing to walk away from the chaos that once felt like chemistry. Until you stop mistaking intensity for intimacy. Until you no longer tolerate pain disguised as passion. This is where the real work begins, not in finding the one, but in becoming the one who no longer settles for less than truth. When you choose yourself, you change the entire frequency of your life. You stop over-explaining, over-apologizing, overextending. You start setting boundaries, not as walls to keep people out, but as sacred circles to protect your peace. You stop wondering if you're too much or not enough. You realize you are exactly who you are meant to be. And in that knowing, you attract not just a partner, but a mirror. Someone who has done the inner work. Someone who sees you without distortion. Someone who meets your soul instead of feeding your wounds. This is the essence of spiritual awakening. It's the death of self-abandonment and the rebirth of self-acceptance. It's remembering that love is not something you earn by being less of yourself. It's something you invite by being all of yourself. The love meant for you does not confuse you, betray you, or ask you to dim your light. It holds you, sees you, honors you, because you've finally done that for yourself first. If this message reminded you to stop betraying your own heart, comment below. I choose myself first. I honor my truth. Your words matter, and your healing begins with self-recognition. 8. Individuation is the foundation of conscious love. Individuation is not just a concept, it is the sacred path of becoming whole. According to Carl Jung, we cannot truly love another until we have reclaimed the disowned, forgotten, and wounded parts of ourselves. Too often, people enter relationships hoping to be completed, but this leads only to illusion. Real love isn't about merging into one another or dissolving our identity in the name of romance. It is about two whole beings walking side by side, grounded in their own essence, choosing one another from a place of fullness rather than emptiness. When we skip the inner work and rush into love, what we often experience isn't fate, it's projection. We look at someone and unconsciously assign them roles born from our childhood pain, unmet emotional needs, or internal wounds. The more intense the connection, the more it can reflect what we have yet to face within ourselves. That's why so many fated-feeling relationships are actually mirrors, revealing the parts of us we've been unwilling to acknowledge. They feel magical, yet chaotic, intimate, yet destabilizing. These aren't accidents. They are wake-up calls from the soul. Spiritual wisdom teaches that the heartache we encounter in love is often the exact medicine we need to grow. A relationship that seems destined but ends painfully may not have failed. It may have succeeded in waking us up. It showed us where we still abandon ourselves, what patterns we repeat, and which wounds we project onto others. If we're courageous enough to stay with this discomfort, to sit in the fire without rushing to escape it, something powerful happens. We stop chasing love to heal our pain and start healing our pain to experience real love. This is the core of individuation, the process of integration, where we become responsible for our own inner landscape. Instead of needing someone to fill the void, we learn to hold space for our own emotions, desires, and fears. And as we become whole, we begin to attract relationships that are no longer rooted in trauma bonds or unconscious expectations. We begin to choose love from clarity, not compulsion. We stop asking, "Will this person save me?" and begin asking, "Can we walk together in truth, even through the storm?" There's a quiet strength in this kind of love. It doesn't rush to possess. It honors boundaries. It creates space for the other person to be fully themselves. And it grows from shared purpose rather than mutual escape. These relationships may not have the fireworks of a karmic entanglement, but they offer something far richer: stability, growth, and soul-aligned companionship. Spiritual awakening through love means we stop romanticizing chaos. We no longer confuse emotional highs with deep connection. Instead, we value peace, resonance, and presence. We stop asking, "Is this the one?" and start living as if we are already whole because we are. When two people meet from this level of awareness, their love doesn't consume them. It elevates them. It doesn't complete them. It enhances what's already complete. That is the essence of conscious love. And it begins not with finding the right person, but with becoming the person who no longer seeks salvation in someone else's arms. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the mysteries of the heart and the soul. Whether you believe that love is written in the stars or carved into your psyche, remember, every connection holds meaning, and every emotion is a guide. If this message has stirred something within you, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom for more insights into the deeper layers of life and love. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming videos on destiny, healing, and the truth of who you really are. Until next time, trust the path your soul remembers.